Hello and welcome to what I believe is the best rebel space strategy for awakening of the rebellion. I believe the best rebel space strategy is to use a fleet of only fighters and bombers that each execute their own role. So why is this fleet and strategy the best for the rebels? For starters, it's great at every tech level of the game, especially early in the game when your specific space stations aren't constructed yet and your rebel planets are still separated. Also, at every tech level of the game, rebel fighters have a clear advantage over Imperial and Black Sun fighters. In each battle, you'll have 220 tactical population space. It is very important to maximize all 220 spots, but to also make sure you have a balance of fighter roles in your fleet. When you load into your campaigns, you will not have any technologies researched, but you can still begin building your fighter fleets with just the starting fighters that don't require those technologies. The fighters worth building with no technology are X-Wings, Y-Wings, and Z-95s. The Z-95's primary role is to act as interceptors and counter the enemy fighters. Their secondary role, once all enemy fighters and bomber squadrons have been eliminated, is to fire at targets that are harder to hit with torpedoes, such as corvettes and transports. Z-95s will be replaced with A-Wings once you have researched Fighter Tech 2 and execute the same role. The primary role of the X-Wing will be first to eliminate fighters and bombers as well. Once you have a handle on enemy fighters, the X-Wing's secondary role is to engage enemy corvettes with their light proton torpedoes or assist the bombers in destroying their targets. X-Wings will not be replaced by later tech units. The Y-Wing's primary role is to eliminate enemy capital ships and space stations. Their secondary role is to eliminate enemy corvettes, then anything smaller than a capital ship. Y-Wings will be replaced by B-Wings once you have researched Fighter Tech 3 and execute the same role. It is also important to have some Long Pro Y-Wings in reserve and to have them in the Pathfinder spot. To do this, drag a Long Pro Y-Wing into the box at the top left-hand corner of your fleet compositions on the galaxy map. This will have them come out of hyperspace first, and then allow you to take advantage of their large sensor range and most importantly their sensor ping ability, while furthermore allowing you to bring in custom fleet compositions of exactly what you want to bring. Through the use of the sensor ping ability, you will be able to see exactly what the enemy fleet is and where you will need to drop in your other fighters. Once you have found the enemy using the sensor ping, identify certain threats on the battlefield. The biggest threats will be the enemy fighters and corvettes. Once you have identified those threats, find a suitable spot to drop in your fleet. Your fleet composition that doesn't require technology will consist of the first 5 spots taken up by the Long Pro Y-Wing squadron. Your interceptor role will be 12 squadrons of Z-95s, separated into 2 groups with each escorted by 1 squadron of U-Wings once you have researched Tech 1. Until then, 14 Z-95s will do just fine. You will also bring in 12 squadrons of X-Wings separated into 2 groups as well. Finally, your last 2 groups will consist of 7 Y-Wing squadrons each, totaling 205 of your possible 220 population. You will certainly also want to bring in any heroes that you have, including 2 space for Luke Skywalker, 0 for Rogue Squadron, 6 for Kyle Katarn and the Moldy Crow, and 6 for the Millennium Falcon. To go over the compositions once again, but this time with upgraded fighters, you will have 10 squadrons of A-Wings separated into 2 groups, 12 X-Wing squadrons separated into 2 groups as well, 12 B-Wing squadrons also separated into 2 groups, and all of the heroes including Kyle Katarn, the Millennium Falcon, Luke Skywalker, and Rogue Squadron. You will have 7 space left over, which you can use on whatever you want. I would recommend another Long Pro Y-Wing to see more of the map, or probably more likely another bomber. At this point in the video, I'm going to be going over the strategy in action while I talk over exactly what to be doing with each unit's role. The gameplay is going to be me using half of the population space being no tech units, and half with the higher tech units just to cover all of the strategy. Now perhaps the most important thing to be doing with this strategy is properly numbering off your unit groups. You can number them how you want, but keep it consistent so that you can quickly tap a number and know exactly what you are selecting in order to make things quick and smooth. Once you have dropped in all of your squadrons and numbered them into their groups, you can begin targeting the enemies. Send your A-Wings or Z-95s to intercept the enemy squadrons, starting with their best fighters. Always target their best fighters, then their worst fighters, before you target the bombers, as the bombers pose no real threat to your only fighter composition. If there are a lot of enemy fighters and you feel the need, you can have one or both of your X-Wing groups help in that area. The bomber groups can target whatever sizable ship you feel is most important to take out. The most important ship isn't always the biggest ship, as corvettes are often more dangerous to your fighters. However, capital ships have their hangar base that will drop in more enemy fighters. The most important thing to do with your bombers is to target enemy hulls, as that will maximize their firepower. From my experience, especially with B-Wings, The secondary weapon systems of your bombers will quickly take down the shields of ships on their own, and then will transfer that damage onto the hulls as well. I say that to mean I don't find it worth taking out enemy shield generators before targeting the hull. Overall, it also adds to a lot less micromanagement. Once you get the groups designated on their roles, you can begin the closer micromanagement for the individual squadrons. This part of the video is a little more in-depth and more complex, but will greatly increase the power of the overall strategy as a whole. I typically start my complex micromanagement with my interceptors. I have each one of them branch out and target a squadron of their own. This allows you to quickly take fighter superiority and eliminate all of the enemy fighters as a whole. Once enough of the enemy fighters have been destroyed and you feel it is safe to do so, have your X-Wings target frigates and cruisers instead of fighters. I typically have both of my X-Wing groups engage one ship, while the two bomber groups target a different one, but do whatever you feel is best in the situation. At this point in the battle, the main wave of fighters should be destroyed, and now you will have to deal with the reserve fighters trickling in. This will require you to keep an eye out and have your interceptors engage them as they deploy. Also, you will over time be losing your squadrons as they are slowly destroyed, so be keeping an eye on your tactical population number to see if you need to deploy new squadrons in. Depending on how the battle is going, 90% of the time you will be dropping in more bombers to help finish off the enemy's larger ships. Occasionally, Brawlhawk Docks and Export gunships can be a solid option to bring in from reserve, as their weapons are better at shooting at all angles, meaning that they can engage more than one enemy squadron at a time. Your hero squadrons are important in this strategy, but they are most important to keep alive. Their fighter bonus is what is most important, so them simply being on the battlefield is more important than them racking up kills. Yes, they are very strong and can rack up kills, but they will also do that on their own, so don't worry about sending them deep into enemy lines where they become vulnerable. I would truly recommend only having one hero on the battlefield at a time, as their hero bonuses do not stack, and it will help prevent losing multiple heroes in one battle. Use their abilities if you can, or just put them on automatic like I do. The only possibly really good ability is Luke Skywalker's, as his lucky shot can potentially one-shot ships smaller than a capital ship if used before he launches his proton torpedo, but it's extremely hard to time correctly and can distract you from the more important part of the battle. Where the strategy becomes the best for Rebel playthroughs is seen in the post-battle casualty report. As you can see from this battle, I only lost 2 fighter squadrons outside of the 2 heroes I suicided in. Losing only 2 fighters when engaging a fairly large enemy fleet shows just how cost-effective this strategy can be. With all that being said, this wraps up what I believe to be the best Rebel attack strategy in the game in my opinion. As always, drop a comment if you have any questions, or join the Discord linked in the description below if you want to talk amongst me and other players about what their favorite strategy is. If you enjoyed the video and are looking for more videos like this one, consider subscribing for more content on Awakening of the Rebellion.